This is Esoteric the Red, and I wanted this one to be about how we got loosh farming wrong. And if you know anything about loosh farming, it's basically, we're on Earth and there's archons, and the popular narrative is that these archons feed on your misery, they feed on your negative emotion and your negative emotional states. And so, with my journey through that sort of, I guess if you want to call it a Gnostic lens, I came to discover that it really isn't your negative emotional states or your misery that they're feeding on. Because the popular narrative is, raise your vibration, raise up, obtain more light. And what I came to discover was that the more I did that, the more I was loosh farmed. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of how I know I was loosh farmed. The first is I once had a girlfriend who when we were dating, there were times when I was with her, I would see in my mind's eye a serpentine being that looked like her. It was like a feminine looking snake. And, I thought it was really odd. And I noticed she would put me in a lot of these weird emotional states, negative emotional states, that her heart really wasn't in the relationship. It was almost like she was doing it on purpose. So I can get kind of how you think that is the narrative, that's what they're feeding on. But this goes a bit further. There was one night in particular, I went to bed, and before I went to bed, I asked her, make sure you come in tonight. I don't know, I just wanted to be next to somebody. And she didn't for like hours and hours and hours and hours, and that was like for her to sit there and be like, yeah, I'll come in tonight, and then just like not show up. So I fell asleep, and when I did wake up, it was probably 3 or 4 in the morning, and she was over top of me, inhaling, like she was breathing. She was bringing her body up. She was like leaning over me and like bringing her body upward and going and like sucking in breath. And as she was sucking in breath, it's like she was using her hands to kind of guide whatever she was sucking up out of me into her. And I could see this energy. It was golden energy. It was leaving me, and she was just inhaling it like a vacuum. And I pushed her off of me. It was like, what the hell was that? And when I brought it up, it was just, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. It was just like maddening. You know what I mean? It was the type of person that could do something so obvious at 3 or 4 in the morning and say, I don't know what you're talking about. The type of person that was like, yeah, I'll be in bed here in a few, and then just not show up. Like, just constantly lying, just, a scumbag. But the point I'm trying to make is that she wasn't feeding on my misery. I was asleep. I wasn't miserable at all. I wasn't angry. I wasn't in a negative emotional state. What she was feeding on was this golden energy that was coming off of me. And so, like, that's what loosh is, a sort of ambrosia that certain high-frequency individuals make. And so it's this ambrosia that they're attracted to, and you get ambrosia and you get this really, really good golden like energy about you, not when you're in a negative emotional state all the time, but it's when you're actually doing this work to, however you want to put it, you want to climb, you want to be at a higher frequency, you want to be closer to God. Well, as you do that, you're becoming more and more refined internally. And so that's actually what's attracting these entities. It's not your negative emotional state. It's that really, really, really good, the honey that you're making. To you, it's honey, or to them, what you're like it's something to siphon from. And the best version of that are these people that are actually refining themselves and refining their character and growing their souls. And so you'll find when you're doing like that, you'll actually attract more and more negativity into your life. Some people wonder why they try to get closer to God, and it seems like the spiritual attacks get harder and harder. It's because they're attracted to that. And I think because they're so predatory, and because it's just in their predatorial nature to not really give a shit about you, to be narcissistic. So all your negative emotions or all that are just a byproduct of their narcissism. They're actually attracted to your light. Okay, so they're not feeding on your misery. They're causing your misery by being scum. But that's not what they're attracted to. What they're attracted to is that ambrosia, that honey, and that's what they're feeding on. And so, I broke up with her, and I kicked her out for that. Because, you're not going to sit there and inhale me at night like a vampire and then not explain to me what the hell you were doing. And this was after, I had already seen her in my mind's eye as some sort of serpentine snake-like being. In fact, I'm not even sure how aware she was of it. Was there a being inside of her? Was she possessed? Because she never came across as someone that was like into witchcraft or into siphoning energy. She never spoke like that or gave any hint to that. I lived with her. I never saw anything like that. So it makes me wonder if, perhaps she had a serpentine being within her that was actually doing the feeding while she was possessed. If she was completely and totally possessed, she actually wouldn't know that she did it. But I didn't stick around long enough to figure out. And then there was one other time while I was sleeping, this time I'm alone. I'm no longer with the chick. I wake up, but I don't spring up out of bed. I don't open my eyes. I just sit there, and I can sense a being or beings around me, and in my mind's eye, I see beings with mandibles, and I can hear them, and these beings kept saying nectar, kind of like how I said it's like honey. They were calling it nectar, this golden ambrosia, honey-like energy that I'm carrying. And, once I popped up, got it to stop, because I think they like to do it while you're asleep, I guess, or they like to do it while you're unaware. But it went away, after I woke up. But I can actually feel, this energy being siphoned off of me, that I'm being loosh farmed at night. If it's not by my girlfriend, it's by these beings with mandibles. And that's my experience of loosh farming. It wasn't like I was just such a miserable person that I was being loosh farmed. It was more like, because I was obtaining this energy, this golden light, there are actually beings out there that are attracted to that and want to feed on that. And so I kind of want to bring this back around a little bit. It kind of was jarring to me, because in my mind it was the the more inner work I do, the closer to God I get, the more I try to better myself. Like I kind of thought that like I would kind of like rise above entities like that. I guess I thought it would kind of fix a lot of that, because again, the prevailing idea is that what these beings are feeding on is like your misery, but it's actually the opposite. You think the fix is to not be miserable. The fix is to fix yourself, but what you're actually doing is creating the very thing that they're feeding on. So it's like, you end your depression, however you want to word it. You do your shadow work. You get closer to God. You're doing, any number of these things to have better energy, so that you feel better, so that you have more vitality, so that you have energy to make it through your day, so that you go through your day happy. And it turns out that that's what they're attracted to. They're not attracted as much to people that aren't full of this nectar or this honey or this ambrosia. And another thing that seemed evident to me was that, like, if you allow your energy to continuously be loose, you will become energetically drained, and that's what will make you miserable. That's what will make it to where you have no energy. That's what will make it to where you're angry all the time. So if you feel like that all the time, they're not attracted to you at all. You've already been drained, or you've not done enough work for them to worry about feeding on you, because there's nothing left to feed on. And I think another aspect to this is that by not only feeding on you, but for these sort of Gnostic archon, serpent, bugs, whatever you want to call them, these like interdimensional demonic beings that want to feed on you, that's the very same energy that's going to get it to where you can actually do things to stop them. So I think for them, it's kind of a double-edged sword. If they don't feed on you, if they don't try to keep you drained and then wind up turning you miserable and empty, you can eventually become so elevated that these things are like peons to you. And sort of like the hunted becomes the hunter sort of thing, because now I don't get Loosh farmed. But I had to deal with an immense amount of spiritual, vampiric, ambrosia-sucking attacks in a very Gnostic-like lens during this journey. And it's funny because I kept telling myself, like, I could rise above them, but it turns out I was attracting them, like flies on poop. Like, just, they were swarming me. There are other moments that I could give you that I was fed on, but those were the two that I wanted to highlight. And so don't trick yourself into thinking that just by, and again, there's a lot of different ways to put it, just by raising your frequency, by getting closer to God, by obtaining more light, however you want to put it, don't think that these beings suddenly are going to flee from you because you're not miserable. They're going to come and they're going to try to make you miserable. But it's not because they're feeding on the misery. They're feeding on everything that's good. They're feeding on that light. But good thing is, if you can push through, you can get to where you can perceive them, like I was able to, and then eventually get to where you can remove them. But that is my experience with Loosh farming. I think we have Loosh farming wrong.